Have you ever felt like someone's opinion made you less important? No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt made this statement 100 years ago. Eleanor Roosevelt was the First Lady of the United States for the longest time and a well-known supporter of human rights. There has never been a First Lady who stayed longer than Eleanor from 1933 to 1945 during Franklin D. Roosevelt's 4 terms in office. While she was First Lady, Eleanor was more politically involved than many of her predecessors. She turned the job from a formal one into one that involved politics and helping people. A daily print piece called My Day and a weekly radio show were some of the things she did. Eleanor was very important in writing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and was the first person from the United States to represent the country at the UN General Assembly. Women's rights, worker rights, and human rights were some of the things she spoke out for. During World War II, Eleanor went to see US troops overseas. She also went to coal mines to learn about the working conditions of miners and spoke out against racism. The African American civil rights movement was very important to her, and she often disagreed with Southern Democrats about it. Hundreds of African Americans were called to the White House, which was a big deal at a time when segregation was common. Her support for women's rights was strong, and she helped start the women's division of the Democratic National Committee. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. This statement stresses that self-worth and self-esteem come from inside and that criticism and views from others only have power if the person lets them have it. Roosevelt believed in empowering people, especially women and people from underrepresented groups. This idea fits with her theory. So why did Eleanor Roosevelt use this statement so often? There was a lot of trouble and criticism in Eleanor Roosevelt's life. She came from a wealthy family and felt like she wasn't good enough. As First Lady, Minister, and campaigner, she was closely watched by the public. She had personal problems, like having to deal with her husband cheating on her. Roosevelt showed strength, perseverance, and a refusal to be defined by outside criticism or social rules during all of these difficult times. Things that people own today are often very important to people. People who don't have the latest and greatest might feel less important than those who do. These days, places like schools and jobs can be very competitive. Not everyone can be at the top, which can make some people feel bad about themselves when they think they're not good enough. With the rise of social media, people are constantly seeing edited highlights of other people's lives, which makes them compare. Some people may feel like their own lives aren't good enough or aren't as interesting because of how selectively they are shown. Society has rules about what is beautiful, successful, and how people should act. Not getting into these can make you feel like you're not good enough. Things that happen even when you are young, like being picked on or constantly being compared to a more successful child, can make you feel bad about yourself that last into adulthood. When family or friends put pressure on you to meet certain standards or reach certain goals, you might feel like you're not good enough if you don't. Robert, who was already an experienced businessman, watched younger companies take off, growing quickly and getting praise from the market. His own company, which used to be a leader, was now barely surviving. As he saw his friends on magazine covers and winning awards in their field, he started to feel inferior. He had doubts about his choices and ability to lead. John, who worked in an office, felt like his friends' flashy lives made him feel less important. Compared to his co-workers' fancy cars and trips, his simple flat seemed dull. So, he felt inferior. Lucy, a painter, felt small when she saw her friends' social media posts about their businesses. When Rachel got a new top position, and Mike became a director, it made her think about what she had done. Being proud of her art used to make it seem silly now. She struggled with her self-worth and stayed away from online sites. Jane, a stay-at-home mom, lost faith when her son had trouble in school. His friends did well and entered universities, but he kept getting rejection letters. For Jane, it looks like people in the neighborhood started to talk and look down on her, which made her question her parenting. Did her choice to stay home make things harder for him? She felt bad about herself because she kept comparing herself to working moms whose kids did well in school. Tom, a youngster, always felt like his friend Jake, who did so well in school, sports, and leisure activities, was better than him. Every compliment Jake got seemed to bring out Tom's perceived flaws. During class talks, Jake's ideas were praised, but Tom couldn't say a word. He started to question his skills and felt like he was just watching the game of success. "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent" is a quote that encapsulates Eleanor Roosevelt's ideas about self-worth, self-empowerment, and how important it is to believe in yourself no matter what other people say or do. The message is a warning that what makes someone valuable is not what other people think but what they believe and how they understand themselves. Even though she came from a wealthy family and was First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt was used to being judged. At a time when women's main jobs were around the house, Eleanor was brave enough to be different. Many people thought it was inappropriate for a woman, let alone the First Lady, to write articles, give talks, and be involved in politics, let alone fight for human rights. There were a lot of stories about her looks, her voice, and even her personal relationships. A lot of people thought she should stick to standard First Lady roles, like holding tea or doing nothing but housework. Still, Eleanor had a strong sense of what she needed to do. She had seen how hard it was for poor people and thought she should use her power to make things better. She didn't run away from the criticism, instead, she leaned into it. For every mean thing someone said about her looks, she fought for something else. When people made fun of her voice, she used it to spread words of peace and hope. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor lived by these words and didn't let other people tell her what she was worth. Because she worked hard and loved what she did, she gained respect over time, not just as the First Lady but also as a strong fighter for civil rights, women's rights, and social justice. By meeting criticism head-on, Eleanor Roosevelt not only cemented her place in history, but she also became a lasting sign of strength, showing that the only way to build true self-worth is to stick to your beliefs, even when things go wrong. Finally, there is a wonderful story about Eleanor Roosevelt. When she heard that the Daughters of the American Revolution, DR, were going to have tea at the White House, she took a strong stand. Marian Anderson, an African-American singer, was turned down by the DR to appear at Constitution Hall because of her race. Eleanor quit the DR because she was so upset about this obvious bias. She did more than that, though. Anderson was going to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. 75,000 people came to the show. Eleanor didn't just say she didn't like what was going on, she used it as a bigger stage for equality. So, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Engrave this quote in your mind, apply this philosophy in your daily life, and live by it from today. Thank you for watching. Kiwi Echo, Lifelong Learning. Please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and share your feedback in the comment zone.